Cheers. Boom. Thanks, man. It's been a while since I did this. And it's Chris, your favorite host, your favorite coach, all things favorite, unless you don't have a favorite, or if you have one already, that's cool. If you don't, I'm just suggesting that maybe it possibly could be me. I'll apply for that job. So anyway, I was watching that intro video and I realized that when I made that intro video, that first clip was, I think the last time we did this, which might be going back a couple of years, but a lot has happened since then. And today is Jennifer Lee is with us to tell us all about what she's got going on. A wildly successful career, kind of the definition of a mompreneur, right?
Yeah.
And you've had quite the journey. So tell us about it. Tell us all about your successful career and leadership in the law firm, all the way leading up to entry and what you've got going on now.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's good to see you. It's nice
Likewise.
to catch up today. Thanks for having me. I always say that life just does not go in a straight line. I talked to a group of high school students a few weeks ago, and it was, career exploration day and kind of talking about, a little bit of a day in the life. And I don't even know how to describe a day in my life, but it was just that, you do not, whatever you went to college for is not likely what you're still doing. And if it is, the question that I challenge is like, are you still happy with what you're doing? I'm grabbing the dog here for 1 second. Well,
we love the dogs. Bring the dog.
He's gonna bark otherwise. This is Jeff. So say hi. The COVID dog era. But
call them snuggling dogs. I aggressively snuggle dogs when I see them. So it's a good.
I know you do. But so my career, I went to school for marketing, and that's actually what I did for the first 5 years. I did not appreciate that I was 20 years old with the responsibility of managing a $500,000 marketing budget a year. I worked for 4 plastic surgeons, and I had the best training I could have possibly had in that first 5-year journey, learning from the best in the industry. Now, unfortunately, when that information kind of became obsolete, because that was before the days of the internet in the marketing world. So it was Big 4. That is how old I am. And then
it's a weird generation we are, where we're kind of really good with technology. We were here when that was born, but we still had a phone attached to our house,
Right. I mean, I am completely I'm the Gen X, right? Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so then I did that for 5 years, got recruited into the legal world, and I managed 2 different firms, each for about 9 years. 2 different law firms, and they were large firms. I was the youngest administrator in the country at the age of 26 years old, managing about a 35 attorney firm. Really interesting experience, learned so much. And law firm operations is everything. I mean, it is an MBA in real life, because you're handling all aspects of business management, which I had no credibility or credentials to do at the time, but they somehow believed that I could do it. And I did. And I did it well. I did go back and get my Executive MBA after, like, in 2012. So it was about 9 years into that career, because I realized that in that world, and not that it's important in all worlds, but particularly in professional services, you need to have the highest level of education in your field as they do in theirs to establish ground level trust and credibility kind of at the outset. And what I thought I wanted to do was go into law firm management consulting. And I knew that at a minimum, I had to have an MBA. And so I did. In the process of my MBA experience, I started writing a book about how to manage a law firm. And I quickly realized, writing the business plan, writing the book, that I just did not want to do that the rest of my life. I didn't want to argue with lawyers. I didn't care how much they paid me. I didn't care if it was for one firm or if it was for 50. I love lawyers. They challenge me. I love having their great brainstormers. I mean, you can have the best whiteboard sessions with them. But as a management, they're really challenging because they're super concerned about diplomacy. And, you always think about them in the law and order and, going into a courtroom.
I'm the anti-lawyer. I mean, I get that political correctness and all that stuff. It's just.
I mean, it's challenging. They can't tell their secretary they don't like her perfume. They can go badger a witness on a stand, but God forbid they have to have a human resource issue involved, and so it was hard. But I didn't leave because I wasn't happy. I actually loved managing firms and I was good at it. But the story of how I got to today of managing, founder and CEO now of Entry NB. And I'll tell you about this here in just a second, as you know, but that was because of a divorce. And it's really that plain and simple. I left a marriage in January of 2020, about 15-year relationship. And I took my clothes and my kids and my dog and the tortoise. And that was it. And COVID hit 2 months later. And there were a lot of challenges that came from that year. But as we know, there's always silver linings that come out of any kind of challenges. And I moved into a house that was a fixer-upper. I remodeled the entire house, 1,800 hours in. I got to the outside and I was out of time, energy, and money. The inside looked brand new. And I was like, how do I add curb appeal without spending a lot? So started looking at options, and I updated the light fixture, and I painted the garage door and painted the front door. But I thought, no, I really just need to update these house numbers too. And that would go a long ways. And so I started going down this path of how do I add curb appeal? And when I created the house number sign, that wasn't what it was about. The house number sign was fine, but it had a cute little planter box on the front. And I was like, well, what am I going to plant in this? It's going to die. I don't have time to water it. It's little. It was like 3 by 8 inches. So I thought, well, no big deal. I'll just go to the craft store and fill it with fake stuff. Well, that no big deal project took me about an hour and a half and $38. And it was a mess. I had to find a wire cutter and Spanish moss. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is adorable. Love the idea. Who can send me a little kit each month with holiday and seasonal decor in it to decorate this and have it look adorable by my front porch? And I started looking for that, and no one did. And so I became my own first customer, and that was how Entry Envy was born. Today, we ship about 500 monthly or quarterly holiday and seasonal decor kits across the country to our customers. Primary demographic are women between the ages of broadly 35 to 65. Core is closer for 40 to 60. And they own their own home. They love decorating their front porch, and they love having a personal touch to identify their home. We have done a lot of pivoting in the last 3.5 years since launching to try and identify where our customers are at. We know they love us. It's just always the challenge in business, how to find your ideal client profile and where are they and what do they want.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about this through the years, and I think one thing that to be noted is kind of you started this off from a home remodel project, like a product-based business. You learned a lot of lessons through that, and then kind of moving into a subscription box idea. So, like, what was the spark that turned it into a subscription box idea? And by the way, it's your customer retention is pretty astounding for this kind of business model.
Yeah, it is. So the average subscription box customer stays 3.5 months. That's a national average. Our customers have a 95% retention rate over a 12-month period of time and 75% over a 2-year period of time. So it's extremely heavy. They absolutely love the product. But, Chris, for me, and you go back to that whole life doesn't happen in a straight line. I knew from my background how to run companies. I didn't know how to start a company. But when I was in
It's a very
college,
different thing.
very different thing. 1997, I was sitting in a marketing class, and my professor, who I really loved, said one thing that stuck with me. He said, if you are ever going to start your own business, and at that time, of course, I'm like, I'm never going to have my own business. He said, make sure you start a business with reoccurring revenue. Now, keep in mind, this is way before the days of SaaS. Like, he used specifically the examples of newspapers and magazines. He's like, this is as old as time. Banks, right? We don't think about it like that, but it is. And so when this idea came to mind and I thought I need somebody to ship me this little box each month, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Dr. Hafer always said, if you were going to start a business, make sure it has reoccurring revenue built into it. So I knew the business model was not about the science. It was really about the boxes. The question was, did other people want this as much as I did?
That's right. And it's got a lot of elements in it that that attract. I love change. So, we've got one at our house, and just kind of, I love change. I love getting gifts in the mail. And I love creativity. So, this idea you have this custom made box that just, and I love architecture. And your entryway, it looks great. And then just kind of get a little present every month or every season, everybody, whatever plan you're on. And that's like a cool thing. So let's talk about that. I mean, it combines style, personalization, and surprise. Things I love. And so how do you keep innovating and staying fresh in the subscription space? Like we've had this thing for a couple of years, and I'm like, how does Jen come up with these things?
I have a lot of customers who ask me that, Chris.
Yeah.
Short answer is I don't know. It just comes to me.
It's just how your brain works. I mean, are you backed up? Do you get the ideas for like next season? Something's coming around for Christmas or Easter or spring or summer, and then you just have ideas. You got something. Are you backed up with ideas, or do you find yourself kind of just getting inspired in real time?
I plan out the year generally, and then I work backwards into it. So my number one strength is strategic, 2's maximizer, 3's ranger. So whether I am in the creativity mode or whether I am in business mode, I'm always, and I do flip flop between right and left brain a lot. I always like back into what we want to have. And so I think about what we've done in the past years, because you're right, that's challenging. You don't want to keep sending the same stuff to people. And as you know, we send 6 different kits a month. So it's not that I'm designing 12 different kits in a year. I'm designing really 100 different kits in a year.
That's true. That's true.
And so, but that is because part of that retention rate is that when we have customers subscribe, they have a very short questionnaire that they complete that tells us puts us into the algorithm of what kind of decor style they're going to like. So I have kind of recently come to describing our product to somebody who has no idea about it. And like, think about it like a razor and a refill blade with a Stitch Fix component. So the razor is your one-time purchase. It's your sign for us. Your refill blades are really our refill decor kits. So how often do you shave? Well, how often do you decorate? And then the Stitch Fix component is this is curated for you. And that's what has retained our customers, because it is new and fresh, but it also meets their decor style. And so like I think about what the rest of this year, so May are beautiful sort of Mother's Day themed gifts, because it is May, but that wasn't the theme last year. June this year is pool party. So we always do fun themes, as you know, for our boxes, because our customers love it. And so it's got a flavor of fun and summer. July this year is very classic. I mean, it's not boring, but it's 4th of July. We did not do any patriotic theme last year in July. And we had but we did the year before. And last year we had several customers who missed it and said, no, I want 4th of July. So we listened to our customers. I think, and then August is succulents. And anyway, I could go through the whole rest of the year. So I don't have the entire kits designed at the beginning of the year, but I plan it out and think about, okay, what do I want to do to surprise and delight our customers? What you said is critical, though, in the subscription box world, understanding why people subscribe to a subscription box and why they unsubscribe. Sure. And that was what I went into this with. Like, why do people like them so much? And on average in America, there are 45% of homes have 2 or more physical subscription boxes in a certain income bracket. Okay, I'll preface that. Sure. But if you have disposable income, on average, you have 2. And so, you might have 2 different food boxes. You might have food and wine. It might be golf and whatever. I mean, sure, there's a subscription box out there for everything. But people subscribe because it meets a need. It's convenient. And they simply like getting happy mail. It's not a bill, right? Mm-hmm. It's a fun piece of mail that they get. It's a surprise and delight factor. The top 3 reasons they leave are because they end up with too much of a product. Like, how many times you're like, okay, I've got enough razor blades to last me for the next 3 years, right? Or they don't find the value meets the price any longer. Like, I'm kind of getting ripped off. I'll just go to the store and buy this myself, kind of thing, or whatever. I can buy it on cheaper on Amazon, whatever. And then the third is that they just usually can't afford it any longer. It's just a budgeting issue. So for us, why I think part of the reason has worked so well of why people have stayed is because we have a very specific purpose for our product. And it's primarily driven by exterior customers. Well, customers that have signs on the front of their house get exposed to all sorts of weather, sun, wind, rain, hurricanes, tornadoes, spiders that move in, birds that decide to live there, like whatever. And so at the end of the month, just like a razor blade, our product is disposable. Some people keep it, but a lot of people are like, I don't have to keep this. I'm just going to toss it. It's $30. I spend that on coffee in 3 days or whatever. And I'm just going to have my new kit and it's going to look great. And so we don't end up with typically the overflow of somebody leaving us because they have too much. Now, if it's an interior product, like they have it on at the door of the assisted living facility, or maybe a little box on their desk as a business card holder, which we also do, then we may lose them after a year because they've collected stuff.
This is one of those things that doesn't get built up, because I mean, most of the subscription stuff that I utilize in my world is I'm sending someone a gift, like the cheese club or the pickle club, or like things like that I've done, and I'm typically doing 3 months. I know Aaron got me for I guess for something that passed, probably Christmas, a bourbon club for 3 months.
Yep.
I've still got 3 bottles of bourbon that are 3/4 of the way full. I can't imagine having a year's worth of bourbon bottles built up, so
Yep.
it's, I think the fact that this thing it's not a consumable thing.
Yep.
It's not a consumable thing, and people like to keep that box fresh. Have you found, has anybody putting like, has anybody used it as like a live planter box where they're, people are putting live plants and things in there, or flowers?
For us, I'm not aware of that. There are a number of other companies that, or manufacturers on Etsy maybe, that make boxes that are similar. And some people do. The challenge with planting real things in a box this small is you have to water them a lot. You've got drainage issues. You've got then wood rotting. Like it's not ideal. So our customers specifically buy our product because they don't want to deal with any of the live. If they want to do live, they're probably choosing somebody else. But we also have a lot of customers who do have other people's products who subscribe to ours. It doesn't matter whether or not you have ours or not. We have people who put this in like urns on cemetery graves.
Sure. That's a cool thing.
A lot of different ways that people are using the decor.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's what are some other like unconventional ways that you've seen this entry envy box or sign used? I mean, I see you're laughing. We heard funerals.
Well, what I'm also laughing about is what ends up in our little boxes. If you think about all of the interesting accessories that may happen in college dorms or condo buildings on lakes, and after hours, people use those boxes for more than just flowers. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Empty bourbon bottles, perhaps, right?
Yes, yes.
Among others, but. No, I think people have gotten creative. Our customers, not only do we have a really high retention rate, almost 20% of our customers have more than one subscription with us. So once they fall in love with it, they're giving it to their mom for, and managing her subscription. They're putting it at their second home. They're putting one in their office. They're putting one in their bathroom, like one of the interior ones. Like there's so many. So I think that just goes back further to the testament of how much people love this once they get it. One of the other things that we've really done is listen to our customers and what they have requested. And the number one thing that they asked for in the last few years was, do you do anything bigger for my planters, like my pots on my front porch? And so we launched that product just in this last month, and it has done really well. But then they kept asking for more. And they said, even though this is easy and it's only going to take me a minute to stick into my planter, can you come and do my front porch? Can you come and do the whole thing? And that one is taking us a little bit longer to figure out, because I don't know whether or not it's scalable, but we're going to test it in Omaha first, because that's, of course, where I'm at. And I always test things here. And the interesting thing about this market is it's actually kind of a tough market. So Omaha is 1 million people, metropolitan area. We have the highest charitable giving per capita in the country. We are very wealthy and we're very generous. However, we're also cheap. Midwest people do not spend money the same way that in terms of sort of non-essentials that the rest of the country does. So I've always laughed and said, if I would have based the future success off of this company initially off of what I sold in Nebraska, I wouldn't have moved forward with it. So I think it's really important, if anybody out there is listening, from a business model or idea brewing, you got to test different markets, not just different pockets of people and types of profiles that might buy, but demographically and in the country, because depending on what it is. And for us, it's also geographic related. Like spring happens different at a different time in North
That's true,
Dakota
yeah. I didn't
than
even
it
think
does
about
in
that.
Texas. So there's so many variables. But with that being said, if I can make it work in Nebraska, I have a very high level of confidence that I can make it work anywhere else. Today, our top 3 states that have subscribers are Texas, Florida, and Nebraska.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So we're testing that here, but it's interesting. People really want a white glove, full front porch service. They want to be able to have delivered essentially a rug, a wreath, seasonal pillows, their faux planters. They want a porch in a box, kind of like a bed in a bag. They want the porch in the box. Like, just send this to me once a quarter and let me just be done with it.
Yeah, people pay for accessibility and convenience, and we see that in huge companies like Uber is the number one taxi service and they own no cars. Amazon is the number one retailer and they don't own products really, right? And Google is the number one news provider probably. And you've got Airbnb now is, the number one hospitality company providing places. And it's just all about accessibility. And the other thing is, I said, we're living in an experience economy where we were competing with goods, and then the person that's got the goods the cheapest, and then we go services. It's kind of customizing a good, but now whoever's doing the service the cheapest, they're just competing in the level of service. And I think after COVID, like during that time, we see a lot of big retail places closing down, and places are opening like experiential things. So I say we're living in an experience economy now, where people will pay for a premium to have that experience, whether it's to go somewhere and do something or deal with a certain person, or be entertained or have an experience where you're getting something fresh and new on a monthly basis or a seasonal basis at your doorstep to kind of do these things. I think your timing was really good with that. What advice would you have for somebody that wants to do a creative based business and just like doesn't know where to start?
We've had anything in the product-based business is challenging, especially from scalability. One of our challenges has been, this is a product for women. So the reality is that 98% of investors are men. And if you are looking at scaling a company and advice, plan on it taking 10 times as long and 10 times as much money as you thought it was going to.
That seems like a general rule for starting a business. It's the passion that makes you stay the course. I think a lot of people quit too soon, and it's just that passion pulling you through. I know you've had your share of challenges and ups and downs. You mentioned it's like a predominantly women in your space, right? In your business. And you're a big advocate for women in trades and non-traditional career paths and so forth. Why does that matter so much to you?
I've expanded even beyond that, Chris, and it sounds so cliche, but I think for me, I just really want women to be happy. And I know that just sounds so dumb, but here's the thing. There are so many women who don't even know they're not happy. Like, they don't even know it, but they think that because they have, they're a good mom, they're a good spouse, they're a good, whatever good is defined as, right? But they're doing their best as a good employee, a good daughter, a good friend, whatever. They're trying to please everyone else. And they think that if they do that, therefore they are happy.
Yeah.
And it's so backwards. And they get to this, I call it the midlife crisis, as I define it, is like, you don't even know what kind of scrambled eggs you like. I love the movie Runaway Bride. And there's the scene in there where, Julia Roberts is like, kind of bantering back and forth about what kind of, she knows what kind of eggs she likes. And he's like, no, you don't. Goes through with all of these. And like, truly, this is what happens. Like, if you ask a woman who's maybe, hitting 40, like, what do you want? What would make you happy? They're like, whoa, nobody's even ever asked me this. And so When in corporate America, in my last 20 years of my career, every time I sat down with one of my team members, most of them were women that were legal assistants, paralegals, receptionists. Always asked, are you happy? Are you happy in your job? What do you like? What do you not like? And I'm a big believer to playing towards people's strengths and letting them, like, if they don't like it, like, they're out. Like, they don't have to do that part of their job. Let's find somebody else to do that. And I know that, like, you can't, if they hate their entire job, then let's find them a new job all the way around. Like, literally, let's find something that you like to do, because if you enjoy your job, you're utilizing your strengths, you're going to be successful and therefore happy. And as you and I both believe, you don't have two lives. You have you have one life, whether it's business or personal. And if you're not happy in one or the other, both are failing. And if you're thriving and both are what you want. And so I think for me, it's been all women love flowers, whether they're real or fake. So at the highest, broadest view, while it seems very trite, I get to deliver flowers and make people happy. I know 500 people a month open up a box and smile and go, oh my God, look how cute this is, right? So I also get to build a culture of women that are working in this company who are incredible, who get to use their strengths, work on their terms, make it work in their world. And I'm just such a big believer in helping women of all ages, especially young girls who don't have a clue what they want to do. Who does? Like, explore. Don't feel the pressure.
We're also trying to figure it out.
Right. Don't feel the pressure. If you don't have the money and you don't have a plan to hurry up and go to a 4-year college because that's what you think you're supposed to do.
I know.
Then go and be making, easily 80,000 plus a year, get your education paid for in the electrician world or HVAC world right now.
Sure.
And, those are not dirty jobs. Like the number of people that Google employs just to keep the air conditioners working is insane, right?
My sister and brother-in-law started an HVAC company maybe a couple years ago, and in their second year, they broke 7 figures. So, and he for so long, talk about women in business. He for so long was kind of like that blue collar security. He was doing enough side jobs. And my sister was like, You're backed up for 6 months with weekend side jobs. Why don't we just start this business? I'll run the business. I'll go promote it. I'll do everything. And you just do the jobs. In their second year, they did 7 figures. So it's interesting that you say that. And I think more and more, I think a lot of young people now are choosing things differently than we did when we were kids. I think we were kind of, and that's I think that's one of the good things about the newer generation is that I think they're kind of following their own path and doing their own thing. And maybe they have parents like us that are encouraging that more rather than, go to law school or become a doctor or an accountant. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I hired as real estate agents that when I sat with them and they're like, 25-year-old kids are like, I have an accounting degree. I did it, man. And I hated it. And I'm like, man, I could sit with you for 5 minutes and say, there's no way in hell that you should have ever done that or considered it. I mean, we're real big with strengths and things like that and behavior profiles. And we use that a lot. I mean, you've actually said your superpower is helping others recognize their strengths and that you do that a lot in your organization. So how do you do that? And what do you look for in people?
Well, when I hire people, I always look for first, sorry, the dog's like breathing over here, coughing.
Dogs breathe, that happens.
Well, coughing, choking, making weird noises. The first thing that I do is hire for people who are nice, smart, and organized. You can teach anybody anything if you just have that premise, so that's first. And then it's always like, what lights you up? What do you love to do? One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what were you doing at a time in your life, if you thought back in the last 10 or 15 years, where you lost all sense of track of time? What activity was that? And, if it's a repeated, like when I was doing XYZ, well, maybe it's not directly that activity, but it's maybe the project-oriented thought process behind it, right? So analyzing, like just starting highest level. I always have people do their strengths finder, and I always only have the top 5. Our natural inclination is to say we're going to work on what we're not good at, but that's not the premise of strengths.
Nope.
But it articulates so well what somebody is good at better than they can usually do themselves, and It helps me understand their mind. I love the Enneagram because it goes back to that why, the driver of what gets you out of bed in the morning. What do I need to make sure that you are doing that will allow you to flourish. And so I am a huge believer in all of the assessments because they don't lie. There's a lot of people who don't like them and who are afraid of them, but I just think that the self-awareness factor is more important than anything.
Yeah.
And so without using those, I can usually get a sense of, after I see somebody and working with them closely, like where their strengths are at, but I can get they're so much faster if I have the data and then watch them in action. One of the things that is challenging that I'm seeing is in the growth of this company is that I came from a law firm where you had a management structure. I'm
Mhm.
supervising the entire firm, working with lawyers, working with teams. You have leaders, team leaders. And so being a manager of a manager is very different. Starting a company, you're the chief executive officer of everything for as long as you are until you hire your first employee.
Sure.
And that's why in startups, it's such a big deal as like, I'm the number 2 employee, I'm the number 3 employee, right? Because these are all major hires at
Wow.
the time.
Yeah.
We are at the point now for the first time again since, oh my gosh, it's been a long time. I'm now in a manager of manager roles again. And that's a hard transition because in a manager of manager, you don't get to see and work directly with the team members
Nope.
to make sure that they're thriving in their space. So you hope that you've done the right grooming and you have the right manager in that role and they're embodying those values. But that is a really interesting piece of growth for me, that when you start a company, you are starting a culture,
Yep.
and you don't, it's not written down pretty on day one. Like, it builds from the leader and who you sort of are and who you start to hire and what values you embody. And then you sort of write it down after you maybe have, 10 employees or so and go, okay, I guess we maybe should put this down in paper.
And I'm glad you're building it deep. So many, I work with a lot of business owners. There's a lot of bad leadership out there. And some of the bad leadership is that everybody wants to have a hand in everything. Leaders don't learn to develop other leaders. And then all of a sudden they get to 6, 7, 8 people answering to them, and their business starts to fall apart and they're in the thick of it. And people are leaving. Look, if you're having a turnover problem in your business, the number one thing that business owners come to me with is, I can't get good people, or I can't get good people to stay. Once they get good, they leave me. That's a leadership problem. And quite often I don't end up working with these people because when I do an organizational audit, I look into what they've got going on. I say, hey, I figured out what it is. You suck at being a people manager. Listen, and it goes back to that rocket fuel, that visionary and that integrator. And so many visionaries are terrible integrators. There are so many integrators want to jump to it and they have no vision. They don't cast it out there. So you need all these things. You need to have something motivating enough for people to say, I'm with you. I'm Jennifer. I hear what you're saying, man. I buy into your vision, and here's how I can contribute to make it better. Now, it's your job as a leader to provide an opportunity big enough for them to grow into this, so they never want to leave. People always say to me in my company, it's a competitor would take me out to lunch and say, Chris, how come your top agents never want to leave your real estate office? And I'm like, because I'm constantly connected with them and say, what's the next step? What's that look like for you? And you stay ahead of them and you build that opportunity big enough, But it's just, I'm so glad that you're, it's an uncomfortable thing. I know you've never done that before, right? So now you're kind of removed. What does your organizational structure look like now? What leaders do you have in place, and like your typical day?
Oh, that typical day question is so hard. And it
Because there's
still
no typical day,
evolves.
right?
There is no typical day. And I think it still is chief executive officer of everything, right? In a way, like, you delegate and you're grooming, but it's still, the founder still has very dirty hands in this. Founder-led sales are still
Mhm.
extremely important. And as the company shifts, my big philosophy is, yes, delegate and groom, but don't ever ask anybody to do something that you haven't done or aren't willing to do yourself. And so, like, for example, in these planters that we're working on right now for selling, yes, our customers asked for them, but there's a huge opportunity in businesses that don't want to take care of real flowers outside their door. And how do you make this more accessible, especially for small businesses or even cemeteries, who have, want customers want quarterly or holiday, different decor done. I mean, there's so many options. Airbnb owners don't want to have their own, they don't want to have to worry about flowers dying out front, but they care about first impressions. There's just so many avenues for
We should
this.
get one for our condo. We're going to be up there.
There you go. There you go. And so that's an example of where founder-led sales, my hands are dirty because I need to be able to figure out if there are sales channels in there. And if I can't sell it, I'm certainly not going to pay somebody else to do it until I know, here's your ICPs, go after this and find more of these people. So I think it's a fine line. What organizational structure looks like right now is a leadership team of 5 with a marketing specialist, production specialist. Our production is really twofold because one is that custom sign part and the other is the subscription management part. And then sales. And
so you kind of separate the creativity and the manufacturing. It's like two kind of components. That's interesting, man. I'd love to be a fly on the wall during one of those meetings. It's like that. That's kind of like the CFO and the CEO kind of, deal.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
It is fun. And then both of those production areas have their own teams. There's a lot. I do have a wonderful executive assistant, and we were talking. I've recently sort of changed. Going back, this is an interesting observation I came up with in the last week. I am a creative first, so very strong integrator traits and qualities, and very strong visionary.
Sure.
But where I thrive, what gives me energy is on the visionary side. So I can do all of the integration stuff, but that's not where best, highest, most effective use of my time is. However, small company, you don't always get that choice. So I hired an executive assistant over a year ago to work with me every morning, part-time, like just 8 to noon, Monday through Friday, to sort of do I'm going to call it the eat the frog stuff, the stuff that I don't want to do, but I have to do, it has to get done.
Sure.
But what I realized in this last week was that every day I'm starting my day out on the left side of my brain, and I'm doing stuff that does not energize and excite me. And by the time it's noon, I can't shift to the right brain as easily. It's like I stay in that left brain, and that is not highest, best, most effective use of my time. And so I kind of asked the hard question, like, what is the number one most important thing for the company right now? Sales. Where is 80% of my time being spent? Back office, eat the frog stuff. Okay, what's wrong with this? Okay, flip this. How do I get in the space of creative, energetic, enthusiastic mindset, and like, well, let's not start with eat the frog 5 days a week. How about we eat the frog 2 days a week? Right. And so that was a simple change that I made in the last week. I think the value, Chris, of someone like yourself to leaders, when they are in the weeds of their company, they cannot, strategic is my number one, but when I'm in the weeds of my own company, it's really hard to see above. You would have looked at it and been like, you would have told me that 6 months ago. You'd been like, Jen, why are you spending all your time on this? You should be doing sales. You should be in creative mode. You should be doing that. And that is something that I've tried to be conscientious of. I'm a big believer in coaches, but that was a blind spot that I caught in the last week and thought,
you're not alone with that.
All right. I maybe need a quarterly check-in with an outside perspective here to make sure that I'm not like, losing my marbles.
It's they're not the only person that struggles with this. And you talk about being a visionary and integrator. I find it easier to integrate other people's visions. I'm a better integrator for other people than I am for myself. So sometimes for our own things, we need to zoom out and say, where's my time better spent? And sometimes we can't even do that for ourselves. Sometimes where we think our time is best spent. I have a client I'm talking to in a little bit, and he's stuck in that technology hole. So it's and I'm trying to get him into it, but his business is doing really good right now. And sometimes when our business is doing good, it doesn't force us, it doesn't cause us to kind of get into producing mode. Sometimes we need a little bit. And I think for you, some of your most challenging times have been catalysts for that next level of success for you. It's kind of moving that invisible ceiling north for you. And it's just to hear that you've got, you're like, man, I can't do this all myself. You went from making these things by yourself, kind of in your garage, and then your mom was helping you in things. And now you've got and now you've got a leadership team kind of at the helm. I mean, how motivated do you feel to make this thing big? Because you have people around you now, you want to create a bigger opportunity for them. Is that a big motivating factor for you?
Yes, but it's interesting because that wasn't really the why. I mean, I didn't know where it
It's
was
not when you
going.
start. It's
No. And then you realize that as you grow, the zeros just become more. The responsibility becomes more, right? It's
yeah,
not, I mean, there's just, yes, there's more revenue, but there's more expenses. And then you have families that are relying on you to, continue to produce and make the company work. So that wasn't something I was prepared for. But what excites me is that it's such a cool opportunity, and we hired our first sales team this year.
yay.
And I mean, total twist, but everyone, ooh, and I mean like everyone in the e-commerce world kind of thinks I'm crazy right now because um, everyone says, all of the professionals, all of the experts, Facebook ads, Google ads, that's how you sell e-commerce. What are you doing this door-to-door sales stuff,
That's old
basically?
school, man. But I still think, even for me in my own business, there's nothing that works better than that personal connection. And I think you've got, you've got that affiliate program going, and it's going to be somebody that's a customer that thinks, like, even as you're talking now, I'm like thinking, man, this would be great for the condo. Erin is peeking in.
Hi, Erin.
And Erin, yeah, so I'm thinking this would be great for the condo. I'm thinking about getting the subscription delivered to my management company, and I'm like, man, they've got over 100 properties, and how cool of this would be for a management company to be able to offer their, people that are managing short-term rentals and whatnot.
Well, and the difference, Chris, in this product, and it seems subtle but is significant, is that right now, if you have planters, and there's a heck of a lot of people who have planters on their porch or by their business or whatever, they're either empty and dead, they are being serviced and taken care of by the property owner, whoever owns the
Mhm.
house or, a business, and they're alive.
Mhm.
And even with that, or they're hiring a landscaping design company that comes and does them on a quarterly basis for the
True.
season. And they might be artificial, they might be real, they might be a combination. But the challenge with this, and this is why I held off launching this for so long, how do you make this scalable? Because the problem with all the landscaping artists and designers that do it is, okay, I'm going to give Nebraska as an example. You cannot plant real flowers here until Mother's Day. That's the rule, because we could still have a freeze prior to that. So the landscaper designer groups have lists this long of people and businesses, homes that they know that they need to get to. Well, they can only do so many. It's an art. They've got to have the resources, the materials, the
Mhm.
time. So you as a homeowner say, well, I don't want to wait until the middle of June to get my pots done. I want them done now.
Mhm.
If you can ship it in a box and do it yourself in a minute, you're like, done, right?
Yep.
So how did we, but again, people don't have that creativity. How do we make it easy? If customers went into Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Joanne, going out of business, whatever, and they go in and they start looking at all of these faux floral stems, even in the greenhouses, it doesn't matter. People feel overwhelmed if that's not their gift, right? And like, what goes together, and how many do I need, and what's the right height, and how do I not make this look like it's all a bunch of fake stuff? So what we were able to do was really work with a professional designer who knew all of the quality faux floral materials. We put them together in 3 different types of arrangements, literally wired it, wrapped it, and then included like a bag of beautiful moss to cover up the excess dirt. So when our customers take this out of the box, they literally are taking out one stem, sticking it in, spreading their moss around, and they're done. That does not exist anywhere. And so that was the question of like, how do we make this scalable? Where do we
Mhm.
get the supplies? How do we get the design? How do we identify what customers want? Um, and it works. Now, where are those customers at who want that besides being our existing customer base? They already bought it. They're like, oh, this is perfect. Thanks so much. You've answered the call. You understood the assignment. But now we have to go out and have an opportunity to find other customers that we've never been able to sell to, because a custom sign doesn't usually work in businesses, but there's so many people who are like, oh yeah, I need this done and I want it done now. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. You've got so much going on, and it's well. I'm gonna let you go shortly. I just have a
Yes,
couple
thank you. I
couple
know
more.
you've got another call.
I got a
I
couple more questions for you. I always like to ask for advice that you have, but I want to think in terms of it. And for people, for entrepreneurs, what's something that people misunderstand about success or just being a founder in general?
Hmm. Um, I think the why has to be stronger than every fear, tier, level of point of exhaustion. Like you just have to know that why. And for me, again, it sounds so simple, but I just really want to help women be happy. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to build a company, to be able to hire saleswomen and pay them instead of Google and Meta, and change people's lives, both that are working, for our company. Um, Getting to use it as a platform to communicate and share with other leaders and founders, like that there's different ways to do this and you don't have to follow the box. So I think that level, that's success to me. And there are some big milestones that I have in the book saying, the when I get here, I feel like I made it, right? But it's a few years out. Years out. I think that you have to give yourself more runway too than what you maybe want to. Like I just had a wonderful conversation with a gal who has a brand called SUBTA. She's an amazing founder, and it's a luxury handbag brand. And she's national, incredible woman. Um, and her company has been around for 15 years, and it's just kind of in the recent couple of years of like, this feels like, for her, she's like, this feels like a real company, a real team, like we're, and she's had tremendous success. And I think that's so true when I want to compare myself to the big, I call them kind of the big five, but like Jamie Kern Lima founded it, Kendra Scott with her jewelry, Sarah Blakely with Spanx, and just sort of these women that I look at as moguls. Well, yes, they had tremendous success, but I am just 3.5 years old right now. And that's a dangerous space to be trying to compare yourself to a brand that's been around for 15 or 20 years before those, $2 billion IPO or,
Right.
sales happened and so forth. So I think the advice is that I give to myself and others is be super careful about that comparison and give yourself grace. And you said it earlier, Chris, don't quit too soon,
Yeah.
stick with
Yeah,
it.
stay the course. It's like you have to, it's kind of cliched. Hey, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. That doesn't mean. I mean, that's real easy to say. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's going to be fun and enjoyable all the time. But there is enjoyment. There is, and we know that there's tremendous growth that happens in moments of pain and challenging times. And most of us kind of grow from that. And I mean, the easiest way to kind of compare it to things out there, to create an analogy, is people when you go to the gym. You got that personal trainer that pushes you those last couple the two that make you sore, the when you don't want to go and you don't want to make it happen. That's where you see the biggest results in your physical health, right? So it's the same thing in business, and it looks easy. It always outwardly looks easy. Oh, because people always tell me, "Oh, that's so easy for you to say." I'm like, well, to get to where I am and have what I have, you've got to do what I've done. And you might not, it wasn't so pretty all the time. You
Mhm.
see the CEO in the corner office and did you work, they're willing to work 60-hour weeks for 20 years to get there. And sometimes we're not just aware of the pain that's involved. So thank you for sharing all that. That's awesome. And we hope to see you out there again and all the stuff. There's a link there for anybody that wants to check out Entry Envy, and you could reach out to me or Jennifer. Is very easy to get in touch with. She's everywhere. Are you still doing the flip flops and sandals? What was it? Flip flops and
Yeah,
hammers? Are you
it's
still
so
doing like the
close.
little DIY videos and things?
No, it's morphed into the most recent test we're doing in Nebraska, which is porch and patio flips and fluffs. So
I love that.
it's the white glove service for you want your front porch to look fabulous, but you don't want to do it. And so the hammers and flip flops are coming back out a little bit to help spruce up some front porches.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for popping in today. And
Thanks,
it was good
Chris.
to catch up. And that's people
Good to
are
see
like, I didn't talk to you before this. We just kind of hopped on. We're like, hey, let's do this. Let me find out. So I'm excited to learn about everything you've got. And I've got ideas too. And we'll see you out there in a virtual world and connect soon. So I think
Thanks, Chris.
Aaron wanted to talk to you. You might get a phone call in a little bit. So
Oh, good. I'll talk to both of you soon. Thanks so
yeah.
much, all. Okay. Have a great day.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Jen. Thank you.